Hello, this is Maxime Verbist. In this second lesson, we are going to learn that the distinction between major and minor arcana reflects that very deep distinction of the consciousness between the soul and the mind. Before we enter in the distinction between the soul and the mind, let's start by a small visualization to get the right mindset. So close your eyes, take some deep breath, and start observing what's going on with your consciousness. So you will see probably images of your actual life, images that you made up completely, conversation you held in the past and conversation you just made with yourself, concerns about the past, the future, one image leading to another image. All this material belongs to the outer layer of your consciousness, the mind. So, if you want to observe what is going on in your soul, you will have to enter into a much deeper level than just being mindful. You have to see the space between two thoughts, the space between two images, the very background of your mind. If you can do so, it means that you already had developed some contacts with your soul. And if it doesn't mean anything for you, just relax. We are going to speak and to explain what is the soul all about. Now, you can come back to the here and now, and let us start the explanation about the distinction between the mind and the soul. The tarot distinction between what we call the minor arcana and the major reflects that fundamental distinction between the mind and the soul. The minor arcana with their four suits reflect the mind. The major arcana with their three lines reflect the soul. Broadly speaking, the mind is the external, conscious and conditional side of consciousness. The soul is the unconditional, unconscious side of the consciousness. Let us explore what does that mean precisely. The mind is all about adaptation. It is basically a set of skills we need to take advantage of our environment. The more we develop our mind, the more we get adapted. For instance, the Seven of Swords represent that mental capacity to take complex decisions we call discernment. Usually, this starts to settle down around the age of 18. But if we fail to acquire that skill, we will keep thinking like a teenager. We are therefore less adept. The soul do not care about adaptiveness. What matters for the dimension of the soul is that we express that dimension of the soul who wants to get expressed, and sometimes it can get completely maladaptive. For instance, the lover represents that basic tendency we have to seek attention and warmth from others. And that is completely normal. But when that arcana starts to kick in our consciousness, and we are not yet very aware of it, it will take the form of what clinicians call the histrionic attitude. So it will turn into an endless quest for attention and very superficial commentary we give about anything. And that attitude is but the contrary of adaptive, because many people find it irritating. Nevertheless, for the person itself, it is highly meaningful, and that is why what comes from the soul is so difficult to change, because even if it's maladaptive, we find a lot of meaning to express it. The skills of the mind are somewhat predictable, in the sense they organize our behavior in a way that can be predicted. For instance, the 4 of denier represents that capacity to settle down into habits humans acquire usually from the age of 4 or 5 years old. Once the habits are set, we can predict that what we did yesterday and what we'll do today and what we will do tomorrow will be pretty much the same. In that sense, we are relatively predictable. The impulses of the soul seem to come out of the blue. That is why we call them destinal. For instance, the hermit has a potentiality for travel, for adventure. And when the hermit is kicking in someone's life, it can transform a very local boy into an international traveler, apparently for no specific reason, because there is nothing in his environment that pushes him to do so. But it is destinal because he feels a call from inside and he has to do it for no apparent reason. The skills of the mind are relatively accessible to our consciousness. It is a dimension we know about ourselves, and people around us also know about ourselves, because it can be observed in many circumstances. For instance, the 4 of cup represent loyalty. It is that very strong emotional bonds that connects us to a group like our family or our corporate. And for instance, if we are very loyal, usually we'll know, usually the surrounding will know. And some people will just declare about themselves, well, I'm not a family person, because that dimension is quite weak for them. The forces of the soul are not only usually unconscious, but when they are strong in us, they keep giving us a completely inverted vision of what the other perceives about ourselves. For instance, the devil represents that underlying dimension of power that exists in all levels of the society. But if that arcana is strong and we are not really aware of its power, we are not only going to react in a form that may be considered as paranoid and to be ruthless or at least distrusting against people, but we will justify very honestly all the violence we have to display as a response to what we have perceived as an aggression. And that's the strange thing about it, is that that force tends to make the aggressor seeing himself as a victim. That is why the strength of the soul distorts completely the perception about ourselves. Now that you understood the distinction between minor and major arcana, you are ready to use the tarot deck. That means that whenever you pick a minor arcana, the tarot will draw your attention towards your mind, towards what is adaptive, towards what is predictable in your behavior. If you pick a major arcana, it will reflect what's going on in your soul, what is unconscious, unconditional, unpredictable, destinal. And with that distinction, you can already start to use the tarot. Maybe you don't know anything yet. It doesn't matter. Start the dialogue, and slowly the meaning of the arcana will settle down. You'll need to use it to get it. Thanks.